The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey, greetings from Minneapolis, everybody. Coming to you cordless. It's Tuesday night, September 16th, 2025. I am Jim Peters. Welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. This is episode number 275. If you're keeping score at home, and you should, someday there'll be a test. All right, so how you doing? Okay, well, first of all, I got to thank Brittany for giving me a fantastic haircut on Friday. I looked like crap for about a week, so we got that out of the way. I'll be honest with you. I'm not feeling well. I did not have a good weekend, and I took yesterday off because for that reason. So here I'm back tonight, and I'm still not feeling well. I get my shit together because the red light comes on. I'm a professional. That's what I do. But our guest for tomorrow night canceled this afternoon, and because of that, and because of the fact I'm still not really feeling that good, I'm going to take tomorrow. We're going to take tomorrow off too. So our guest tonight is Tyler Gray. He's a former. He was on the television program, CBS television program, SEAL Team. He's a former special operative for the U.S. Army. That would be kind of their Delta Force or the Army's version of SEAL Team. And he wrote a book. He's written a book called Forged in Chaos about getting blown up in Iraq and then coming home and having to deal with the aftermath of that. We taped this afternoon. Fascinating guy. I think you'll enjoy this. And he's got a lot of interesting things to say about a lot of interesting things. So there's that. So like I said, we're going to take tomorrow off, Wednesday. Thursday, a guy named John Adams is going to be here, and he runs a website called Adventures in Remote Viewing. Now, I've talked about this several times in the past. Excuse me. Remote viewing is the supposed, I can't really say that at this point because it's basically been proven now that this is real. It's the supposed ability to project your observation to a remote location. In other words, you're sitting at a desk, like say in Minneapolis, and you are asked to go to coordinates in a location in Iraq with your mind. And what do you see? Now, that sounds like bullshit, but this is pretty much at this point proven to be real. And really, reason we know this is because the U.S. Army ran an extensive program in the 1970s, 80s called Project Stargate, where they investigated with this. And they started doing it because the Soviets were doing it. And they had heard the Soviets were doing it successfully. It sounds like complete crap, but the problem is it's been proven over and over again to be accurate. And the Army proved it to be accurate. Now, supposedly, in the 1990s, they discontinued this program. I don't believe it's bullshit. The Army never stops doing anything that actually works. And they probably just renamed it and reclassified it. That's my guess. But and John Adams is not with the Army, but he is he basically he's corralled a bunch of prominent remote viewers. Now, the other thing about this, believe it or not, I can buy the remote viewing part. I can't. I've seen way too much shit that's way weirder than that. So I can buy that. The thing I really have a hard time wrapping my mind around is the fact that everyone involved in this says, and we're going to talk to John Adams about this on Thursday, everyone says that anybody can be trained to do this. Now, like opera singing, you may not be that good, or like golf, you're not going to be Tiger Woods. The Tiger Woods are remote viewing right out of the bat. But supposedly they say that anybody being trained to do this. Now, the reason I actually got a hold of John Adams is because he ran a study there's this comet flying through the solar system called 3I Atlas. And maybe you heard about this. Avi Loeb, the astronomer, the chief astronomer at Harvard University, he thinks there's telltale signs, strong indications that this is an artificial object that's basically an alien spacecraft, or more likely an alien probe. And so Adams got 6 of his prominent remote viewers together and gave them the instructions, the coordinates in space. And also, this is the other thing. This is the other thing that's really kind of weird how this works too. They to make certain everything's kosher, they don't actually tell you what you're actually where you're actually going with your mind. In other words, if they ask you to go to a remote location in Iraq and look around with your noggin, they don't tell you you're going to Iraq. They just give you coordinates, longitude and latitude. And you're thinking, well, how can that work if you don't know where that's at? The theory, supposedly, is that they've discovered through doing this that consciousness is universal. So it doesn't matter whether you know. The only important thing is that some human on the planet knows where that location is, and of course somebody does, because somebody, they have to plot it out to give it to you. So somebody knows. And that's the same thing they did with the 3I Atlas experiment. Adams got 6 prominent remote viewers together. He gave them coordinates in space. I know you're going to say I'm crazy. We're going to talk to this guy. He gave them coordinates in space and go out there and take a look. And all 6 of them basically came back with the same thing. Now, Adams, I can't remember what the numbers are, but if you know anything about the odds of that, the chances are all 6 people basically coming back with roughly the same description of what this thing looked like and what it was is mind-boggling. That's like way beyond statistical probability. And yes, they all 6 of them all said it's an alien probe. That's what all 6 of them said. Avi Loeb's particular evidence is that it appears this thing's actually generating light on its own. I mean, normally a comet flying through the solar system, you can see it because it's reflecting light from the sun. This thing, Loeb says this thing is actually generating light from inside itself. In other words, it's lit up. So that's his. Anyway, we're going to talk to John Adams on Thursday about the whole remote viewing scheme, this whole thing he did with the experiment with 3I Atlas, and basically, I mean, and it's not just that they can go to different parts of space. They can supposedly also go forward and backward in time, although going forward in time is not guaranteed because the theory. All right, I'm crazy. The theory is that the future is not there's only so many futures that can happen, so you might pick the wrong one. So you can't predicting the future is hard. There you go. That's the example. So anyway, that's Thursday, and then we got a whole slew of people coming on next week, and the week after that I'm taking off. I promised my wife we're going up to see her relatives up north in northern Wisconsin. And that's what we got going on here. So I'm going to take another night tomorrow night and just try to recuperate a little bit. Old age or something, I don't know. But anyway, I got a great haircut. And look at that. I'm looking at the monitor. Holy Christ. They should just take me behind the shed and put me down. God. Well, anyway. Okay. In 12 seconds, we're going to talk to Tyler Gray. Here we go. Joining us from North Carolina, author, former, I got to ask you about this, but anyway, actor, author, and the author of this book I'm going to put on the screen here, Forged in Chaos. Tyler Gray is joining us. Hi, Tyler.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So my first question, I want you to explain this not just to me, but to the audience. What part of the service were you actually in? You were with Delta Force, right?
Yeah, Army Special Operations. Yeah.
And so Delta Force is part of Army Special Operations.
The
Yeah, this is the part I'm confused about. I've
yeah.
always wondered how this works.
Yeah, there's a. I can neither confirm nor deny.
Are you, that's another question too. Are you under any security clearances or lack of?
No, I mean we signed quite a lot, so there's quite a bit of stuff that I'm not at liberty to talk about.
Right. Well, all right. I tell you what. Can you at least explain to me and us, like what are the is SEAL team part of the Army, the Navy? I don't quite get that. Or can you not talk about that either?
SEAL teams are Navy SEALs, which is part of the Navy.
Right. Okay. All right. So,
but I was on a show called SEAL Team.
Yeah, I know. I thought we talked about that.
Right. That's a TV show about Navy SEALs.
Yeah. Right. And if you don't mind my asking, on that show, as far as I can tell, were you like the only military advisor that was actually on screen?
I mean, there was a couple guys that were. I mean, it depends. Over the years, there was a couple. One named Ryan who was on screen later. So we had quite a few veterans involved in that show, and so this guy Scott Fox, that was on the show for many years. It was a former SEAL. So yeah, there was all of us. I mean, I would say all of the all of the ex-military, contributed to advising to a degree over the years.
Forgive me, I never watched the show. I had the impression that on screen you had kind of a minor part, or am I wrong about that? Or
no?
Oh, okay. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
it was a great time.
A lot of wait. What's hurry up and wait?
Yeah, that's the military for you.
Yeah. So why'd you decide to get into the military? Why'd you sign up?
It was just something that, I always wanted to do since I was a little kid. So it was very much, really, I mean, I kind of don't really look at it as a choice that I made. It was just something that I felt that I had to do.
What people call a calling.
Yeah, I think that's a great cliched, but I think that's a great description.
Yeah. And did you end up in the military where you wanted to end up?
Yeah. It was very, where I eventually went was a very specific, took a lot of work and effort or time and effort to get where I was. So yeah, I was very happy where I ended up, or where I got to, which was by choice.
Yeah. And so tell us about getting hurt. How's that work?
Yeah, well, I got, we were doing missions overseas, and I was in Iraq, and we did a nighttime raid for a high value target, and just a major, a lot of stuff went on that night, and I ended up getting, blown up, and subsequently it was, my injuries were severe enough to get medically retired, unfortunately, because of them.
I'm under the impression that this raid was relatively routine, right? You were not expecting this, or?
You mean expecting to get injured the way I was?
Right.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously that wasn't in the plan.
But I mean, as far as scenarios go, am I right about this? That this wasn't considered that dangerous that night?
Well, no, I mean, I think if somebody said it was a routine mission, that's true. But at the same time, it was routinely extremely dangerous. I mean, you're going, to a place where there's, not just one, but more than one, person there who's, got machine guns and wants to kill you, machine guns and explosives. So it's, every mission, even though they were routinely dangerous. But when things are routinely dangerous and you don't get hurt, over time, you just begin to, that danger becomes routine itself. And so you don't I think over time you start to realize how serious the danger is if you get away with it enough times, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but am I guessing too that part of the psychology of doing what you do is that you basically can't think about it because if you did think about it, you go nuts, right?
I mean, I would say you think about it, you're aware of it, but you definitely don't focus on it just because it doesn't do, really anyone any good to focus on it. But I mean, you are aware of it enough to try and mitigate the risk factors.
Mm-hmm.
But when the environment is dangerous, there's only so much that you can do to really, you can't mitigate all the risk, all the danger, obviously. And so, for me, when it happened or looking back or whatever, I knew that death or a catastrophic injury was a very, very possible scenario. So I don't look back and feel surprised by what happened or frustrated or angry. I mean, it was very much not the conclusion that I was hoping for, but it was definitely always a known risk and very much in the realm of possibility.
So physically, what happened to you?
You mean from the injury, or
Yeah.
I got blown up? Took a good part of my right arm off. Also, there was a groin injury involved. I got a pretty severe head injury from it. I was wearing a helmet, but it's still a pretty good, concussive and fragmentation force in my helmet. And it was about a 4-year recovery from the injury till I again not saying I got back to normal, but it took about 4 years to get to my new normal. Would be a better way to put it. So,
Yeah.
very catastrophic wound.
So my impression is that this psychologically really screwed you up too.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of psychological, from TBI, which is obviously, a physical brain issue, I guess, for lack of a better term, to obviously, the psychological. Really, I think what was difficult for me was more the loss of the job, loss of the team slash community, loss of purpose, identity. Those were the things that affected me more than anything. And the reason I bring those up as well is because those things are affecting people when they get out of the military, regardless of if they got physically injured or not. So
Right.
I think, for me, the physical injury just magnified the factors that really everyone is dealing with when they get out to a degree.
Is your experience that most people go, or the majority of the people going to the military because of a call, they feel a calling? Do you think that's true? I don't really know. Not a
Well,
person.
I I mean, I don't know. I only know probably the answers for, the people that I know well. And I'd say for people I know well, I'd say that's relatively common. I think it's common in the special operations community. And the reason I say that is because it takes, extra layers of, you have to volunteer for this, you have to volunteer for, so it's a very dedicated, laid out pattern. And so I would argue there's more people that would say I was called to that because, we saw saw those units, those organizations, and sought them out. So whereas a person maybe that was, didn't have a calling but kind of fell into it, for lack of a better term, it would just make sense the people that went to very specific things felt called to those specific things, where the people that did maybe general things just kind of joined the army or the military and then kind of gave it a shot, maybe got money for college and got out. I wouldn't. There's definitely things that you can use the military for, that I definitely think are advantages, and I think there's some great opportunities. Again, paying for college is a great example of something that I think kids want. Free college.
Right.
Great. No problem. Join the military and we'll give it to you. The government does offer free college. It does. But there's no free lunches They want something from it, and that's understandable. And I think we need to change the mentality in this country from thinking that people deserve something from nothing to changing it to a mentality of accepting that they deserve something from something. You will get if you give. And this mentality in the younger generations now of expecting to get without giving, that's called charity, and that's just not how governments and companies work.
So forgive me, when did you actually leave the military?
I left in 2007.
Okay, so I assume you haven't actually seen firsthand this attitude of younger people about in the military about wanting something for nothing. Have you? I don't know.
Well, I've seen it firsthand, not from inside the military,
Right.
but kids talking nowadays about wanting free college and all these different things. So the military or the U.S. military has offered free college for a long time. I mean,
Yeah.
there was the GI Bill when I joined prior to 9/11, and then post 9/11, there's the post 9/11 GI Bill. So, I mean, they are really good benefits. Quite frankly, I mean, I'll be the first to say I think they're almost too good. I mean, they're so good that to me, people could join the military that don't care about the military but just want the benefits because they're so good.
Well,
And
wouldn't
I'm
you
not
say,
saying I
wouldn't
disagree.
you say there's a certain number, a small percentage of people actually do that? That's the reason I asked, a lot of
No,
people.
it's there. I mean, you got people joining the military for a million different reasons.
Right,
I
right.
would say. I mean, I would say all across the spectrum. I mean, the one thing that I will disagree with people about joining the military is, when people say that they join the military just to serve their country. I don't know that one for me. I think most people join the military for personal reasons. I think serving their country is an ancillary benefit for those that, that means something to.
But Tyler, don't you think you feeling a calling is kind of doing it for your country, or that's not the way you look at it? Or
I don't know. I'm not judging other people's reasons for joining. I'm just saying for myself, I would feel disingenuous to say I joined the military to serve the country. I joined the military to serve myself. I joined the military because it's something that I wanted to do. And I don't think, I mean, look, maybe I'm judging this wrong in the sense that maybe I wanted to serve the country, so I'm kind of throwing serving country into that. I just think that I think ultimately we do, even if it's doing something good. If you're doing something good, it's not purely altruistic. You're doing it because it makes you feel good, which is really selfish. And and I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, for me, I feel guilty when people thank me for my service. And the reason is in my head, I'm going, well, I didn't do it, for you or for the country. I did it because I wanted what I wanted out of it. I did it because I wanted to do that.
But you did get blown up. Most people don't, do that.
Yeah, but I mean, but again,
thank you for getting blown up on my behalf. I mean, I'm sitting in Minneapolis in my underwear, and you're off for getting blown up. It's like,
but again, it's just like I did it because I wanted to do that job. And again, I had fun doing it. I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't do anything differently. I enjoyed being a soldier. I really, it was who I was. And so, and I don't know, maybe I never really thought about it I've just seen it always through my own. I just see it as it's hard for me to accept anything other than I did it for kind of the reasons why I wanted to do it. And so when I say that I don't think people did it to serve their country, I'm really saying that for myself, because to me, I just feel like I did it for my selfish reasons. And maybe I'm putting my opinion onto others. So that's my point. I don't really know why other people do it. I just know why I did. And for me, it was because I wanted to do that job. I wanted to fight bad guys. I know that sounds cliche, but I wanted to help people who couldn't help and defend themselves. And that's the way I saw that job.
Yeah. It's, you were talking about, I don't know how to put this. It's true that, I assume you would agree that, especially for people in the military that saw combat, a lot of people have a hard time with identity issues after they leave the service, whether they got hurt or not. Don't you think?
I mean, I think that statement is true, regardless of seeing combat or not. And that's what's interesting to me about that is most people think that the military has a certain type of issues when they get out if they saw combat, and then a different set of issues if they didn't. And the reality is the issues that veterans have when they got out are relatively the same whether they did combat or not. I'll even go one step further. I was literally talking about it last night with a group of veterans, and we were talking about how in our experience we were lucky enough to go to combat. There's a lot of people that we all knew that didn't go to combat. Let's say they were in and then they got out right before 9/11 happened or whatever, and those people really struggle with the fact that they didn't go to combat, which is no fault of their own. They got out before a war happened, which again, to a lot of people, they go, that doesn't make any sense. Well, it does. If you join the military, imagine joining a professional sports team, and you practice for a year scrimmaging, and then right before the big game, you get injured and you're out.
Yeah.
That's going to feel, it's like your purpose of being in the military is go to war. That's what the military's role is to fight and win this nation's wars. And so I think a lot of people, that serve during a non-combat time period really kind of struggle with not feeling like they did enough. And that's also a piece of that identity or really value or worth issue.
So your book is called Forged in Chaos, and the impression I'm under, based on the publicity material, is that you came out of this all after your 4 years in the hospital, basically in a psychologically chaotic situation. Do I have that correct? Or
well, it wasn't 4 years in the hospital. It was 4 years, of overall recovery time between, in and out of the surgeries and things. But I mean, really, that 4 years was just when it was all the issues that we talked about earlier, identity, purpose, loss of community, everything. It just, those just grew during that 4 year time period. So by the time I was, physically, healed, at least, to a degree that it wasn't going to change, my injury wasn't going to change much more, then it was really, I kind of turned inward, and the war outside turned into a war inside. And I really went through a severe identity crisis at that point, which was, who am I? When I identified with what I did, who am I now that I'm not doing, this job? When your job is your identity, who are you when you're no longer doing the job?
Right. So hypothetically, if you had not gotten hurt, do you think you might have had, if maybe not as intensely, or more or less the same feeling, or not? In the parallel universe where you didn't get hurt, and just exited.
Yeah, no, I think it's common for veterans to experience this problem, really, no matter what. It obviously, the physical injury and the degree of the physical injury magnified everything, but it didn't create it. It just magnified it.
Yeah.
And so I think not all, but the vast majority of veterans I see are all experiencing the exact same issues, regardless of if they were, physically wounded or not.
And do you think being more or less largely immobile during 4 years gave you time? Do you think time to think about it too much?
Yes and no. Yes, because I would say that it definitely, it was definitely a lot of time to think. So that would be the yes. The reason I would say no is because I really went out of my way to try and avoid thinking. So I think that 4 years was more like me running from the reality, the mental reality. That's the best way to put it.
And on a kind of a more larger global basis, do you think that in some ways everybody has this problem? I mean, as far as like meaning of life, it's like,
purpose. Although, I think humans in general struggle with that. I think the problem with the military, the specific problem with the military, is that I think everyone struggles with meaning, purpose, worth, all those things, identity. I think everyone struggles with that. The problem I see with the military, and this is, other jobs have this, but I'll use the military because that's my experience, is that when you're in it, you're given purpose, you're given meaning, you're given that value. And so while you're doing this job, you feel like all those questions and all those problems are solved.
Yeah.
Then when you get out, now they're unsolved again. And instead of just going, I wonder what the answer is, you feel like you had the answer, you had the solutions, and it was taken away, which is harder really to accept. It's harder to accept that you had something and you lost it rather than that you never, that you're still looking for it.
Tyler, this is going to sound like it's off topic, but I don't think it is. With the coming of artificial intelligence, I mean, I think at least in the short term, and apparently it's already started, it's going to put a lot of people out of work. Do you think this could fuck up humanity? Just the fact that people literally are going to have the jobs taken by machines?
Yeah. I think there's some serious bad repercussions coming from it, because we are not designed. The further we get away from, and this is going to sound backwards, but it's true. Life used to be very hard daily to survive. And that is the environment by which we are designed.
Yeah.
The more that it's easier every day to survive, and the less work that we have to do to survive, the more work we have to do to entertain ourselves. And the problem is that the entertainment never has the same weight as the survival.
Right.
And so that leads to a magnified loss of purpose, value, all those different things. I think with AI and robotics coming, we are absolutely going to see people struggling, and you know this. If you want to look at miserable people, look at people that are retired and have nothing to do. And people go, well, that's the dream. Yeah, it is for some people. But I'd say the vast majority of retired people are bored.
I have a friend of mine who says, I'm going to be 70 next month, and I have a friend of mine about my age, and he says he's never going to retire, because have you noticed when guys retire, they die in 2 years?
Yeah.
And then conversely to that, I think the proof of what you're saying, the proof of the pudding, is that there's extremely wealthy men that could stop working tomorrow that don't.
Yeah.
You look around, very, very, very few people of means actually quit working. Relatively speaking, anyway.
Yeah.
So let me ask you another thing too, because I think this kind of plays along the same thing. There's a lot of people who would say we have a political divide in our country right now, and I'm starting to increasingly grasp onto the theory that other people have posited, that the problem is not we don't have a political divide. It gets back to exactly what you're saying. Life has become too easy, and because of that, more and more of us are becoming mentally ill. Do you think there's something to that?
I think there's something to that, although I do think we have a political divide in this country. I do agree with what you're saying, but I'm going to flip the divide. I think we do have a political divide. The problem is I don't think it comes from us. I think the divide in this country is being propagated by someone outside of this country, and they are intentionally trying to get us to turn against each other, because that's the only way they can defeat us. And so I think we are absolutely being manipulated by outside forces to try and get us to hate each other and do violence upon each other. And guess what? It's working.
I totally agree with you, but then people turn around and call me a conspiracy theorist, do you have any idea who's doing this? I have a few ideas, but not very good.
We know who's doing it. We know who's doing it. They're doing it in multiple ways, and they don't even, they know what they're doing. They've been doing it for a long time, and it's working. And so we have to, I see America is like, a household, and we're siblings and we're fighting with each other, but we have to realize that the neighbors down the street are making us fight with each other. They're the ones stealing our toys and then, blaming the other sibling on it. And we need to recognize that, and we need to bound together as a family and start realizing that we don't need to fight each other, because we're already in a fight with the neighbors down the street.
That's a fantastic analogy. That really is.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's terrific. God, where do we go from there? Oh, can you explain to me that apparently you've developed the LTSD theory? What is that?
So LTSD, obviously everyone knows what PTSD means and stands for. And everyone kept telling me, mental health professionals told me I had PTSD, and it just never fit how I felt. Simple as that. It just never fit right. And I couldn't make it fit I couldn't make the diagnosis fit with how I felt. So I was like, well, I'm going to figure out something that fits how I feel. And it took me years, but eventually I came up with LTSD. And what LTSD is lack of traumatic stress disorder. And what that means is I don't have post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder is a person who, when things are calm, they're calm. When the environment is chaotic, they're chaotic. They're all over the place. I'm not that way. When the environment is chaotic, I'm mentally calm. Conversely, when the environment is calm, I'm mentally chaotic. And that is LTSD, lack of traumatic stress disorder. Because chaos in the environment is my homeostasis, I need a chaotic environment to be calm. And when it isn't, I then create the chaos in the environment in order to calm myself. And that's the concept of LTSD.
So is that, how do I put this? Is that some sort of craving in your head? Do you think you crave the chaos, or?
Absolutely, 100%. But where does it come from? It comes from a chaotic childhood. Once you have a chaotic childhood, forged in chaos.
You don't think the military caused this? You think this? You're hardwired to think this way?
You could put 100 PhDs in the room, and I'll tell them all to their face they're wrong. I know where it came from. It came from childhood, and I have seen this pattern. I wrote the book because I've seen this pattern in thousands of other veterans. I know the truth of it. That no one could, I don't care what they say, because I know the truth of it by talking to people and understanding their story. And so the reality is, we had chaotic childhoods. Our brains rewired themselves to be calm in chaos, which, by the way, is how we're able to be calm running into a building where people are shooting. Right. How is that possible? Well, it's possible because my brain and my nervous system are used to that chaos in the environment. So yes, is somebody shooting, out of a building more chaotic than, my parents fighting when I was a kid? Yeah, it's obviously more extreme. But also keep in mind is, when I was a child, my parents fighting every day, all the different things I experienced as a child, that was level 10 chaos for me at that time.
Yeah, because you didn't know any better.
I didn't know any better. And so that was very, like, oh my God, this is bad. And so now, if you're like, I remember going to basic training, and, the drill sergeants are yelling at you. And I was like, oh, this is just like being at my house. You know what I mean? It wasn't a crazy environment, because that was what I grew up in. And so all these people that I've seen doing, all these veterans, when I break down their story, we all had variations of the same childhood template. And that template is forged in chaos. And that instills the lack of traumatic stress disorder that allows you to do the job. But then when you're no longer doing the job, it really is creating issues in your personal life after your service. So
do you think post-traumatic stress disorder is overly diagnosed, or?
Yes, I do. I do. I mean, I'll just say this about post-traumatic stress disorder. You can't have post-traumatic stress disorder unless you have pre-traumatic stress non-disorder, right? Just think of the words, post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, great. You have to have pre-traumatic stress baseline. I didn't. And most other veterans didn't have a pre-traumatic stress baseline. I never grew up in an environment that wasn't traumatically stressful every single day. So I can't have the same reaction to traumatic stress as someone who had a completely different baseline. And the mistake that PTSD is making is assuming everyone has the same baseline.
So just for lack of a better term, what's the cure to lack of traumatic stress disorder?
Really, there's multiple things. I mean, one, we have to understand whether it's LTSD or PTSD. It really doesn't matter. The reality of both of those things is those are not mental health problems. They're actually nervous system dysregulations. Until we treat LTSD, PTSD as a mental and physical issue, they're never going to be solved. You cannot fix a physical. That would be like me getting blown up and my arm being half off and them giving me talk therapy to fix it.
Yeah.
Like if you look up what PTSD is, it is a nervous system issue. And the fallacy is that you can fix the nervous system by talking. It's not true. And so one of the big factors is we have to understand that it is a physical and mental issue, not just a mental health issue that can be solved through talk therapy.
Well, and forgive me, I don't really know about this, but I'm under the impression that drugs are prescribed for PTSD. Is that true?
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm going to go on a limb right now, and I think that PTSD exists to prescribe drugs, and they can, people can disagree with me, but I can tell you right now, if I go to the VA and I tell them that I have PTSD, I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to give me multiple bottles of drugs.
Yeah.
I think that the pharmaceutical industry has inserted itself into the mental health industry and uses PTSD as a catch-all blanket diagnosis to prescribe psychotropic drugs.
Welcome to our world.
To include antidepressants, which, by the way, we know that SSRIs do not work. I mean,
Right.
One of the side effects of antidepressant medications is depression.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're absolutely right.
That's like giving a person a cancer drug, and one of the side effects is
Cancer.
like that is so illogical. And I'm sorry, the mental health community needs to be embarrassed by what's going on.
The real problem is I think they work a little bit, and that's where everybody, there's a kernel of truth in there, but overall they don't work. You're right. I mean, but so you got something that works a little bit, and then you can sell it. That's the thing. Is it for some people under some circumstances it might help a little.
SSRIs, you can find there are studies, independent studies, not studies financed by the drug companies, that say that SSRIs are not shown to decrease depression at all. And not only that, but you can find studies that say that SSRIs is selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor.
Right.
Serotonin itself, the presence or lack thereof, is not a definitive sign of depression. And so if serotonin's presence or lack of presence isn't a definitive sign of depression, well, then that means SSRIs can't be a definitive cure for it, because we don't even know serotonin's exact role.
Yeah.
So
I didn't mean to sound like I was disagreeing with you.
No. I mean, look,
that's the opposite logic,
No,
I understand some people.
Yeah, no. Yeah, and one of the big problems too, to your point, is it can work for some people to a degree. The problem with that is the amount of time. You got 20 different drugs, and you got to take each one for 5 weeks.
Yeah.
3 to 5 weeks to see if it works. And then you have to be aware enough and tracking it enough to go, yeah, that worked. Yeah, that didn't work. Because it's subjective. You're gauging your own happiness. What else is happening in your life?
Right.
Is it the drug, or is it, I met a new, girl, or it's a really complicated, they're not definitive. Our own studies are not definitive studies, and it's really hard to know which one can work for you, which one is working. And so it's just the term I use is, I call it chasing chemistry. We're chasing brain chemistry, and it's really a more of a hit or miss approach rather than, a true objective science that we can really quantify right now.
Not to mention the fact the side effects are ridiculous too. It's like, is it even
100.
Even if it worked, I don't know if it's even worth the trouble, even if it worked.
Yeah, I think to your point, it depends, because like side effects is another example of, some people experience severe side effects. So, so it's like, it's always a balance between, is the positive effects worth the side effects? It's just, and again, look, I understand the pharmaceutical industry is, there's a lot of great drugs out there, no doubt about it. And I think they're going to really start developing much better medications and drugs for different things. But I definitely think PTSD is an It's like ADHD. It's grossly over diagnosed
Yeah.
and over medicated, no doubt about it, in today's current society.
I'm not even sure ADHD actually exists even.
I don't think it does exist. That's a whole nother conversation. But I think ADHD is actually what I'm calling LTSD. I don't think ADHD exists.
So
it's a trauma response, and that'll be proven one day. But they're saying it's a brain chemistry issue. But we also do know for a fact that trauma changes your brain chemistry and the structure of how your brain works. So the problem is, if you're chemically trying to change back that structure and again chase those chemicals, what's going to happen is that you're just constantly going to be chasing those chemicals. You're fixing the symptoms. You're not curing the disease. If trauma was the disease, then the way you fix the trauma is by processing the trauma and going through all that. And there's a physical and mental component of that. But just prescribing the chemicals that you say are missing or are too much and you need less, you're chasing chemistry, and it's never going to work, in my opinion.
Yeah. Did you plan on spending your entire life in the military? Was that your plan before you got hurt?
I was definitely going to do 20 years. That was, I had re-enlisted after 4 years. I re-enlisted for 6 years. That would have put me at 10. I was definitely going to do, 20 years. I may have done more. Who knows? But I was definitely going to do 20. And then, obviously that didn't work out.
Do you miss it?
Yes and no. I mean, I think it's like anything. There's parts you miss about it and parts that you don't. I think it's like a relationship now. You look back and you remember the good stuff. You go, oh, they weren't that bad. Oh, they were sweet about this, and then you watch a video or read a diary of your entry at that time, and you're like, I just got to get away from this person, So I think it's kind of the same way.
When you talk to veterans, do you think most or the majority of veterans miss it?
I think it's the same. I mean, I think it all depends. I think it all depends also on your present circumstances. If you're happy with your present circumstances, you'll miss it less than a person who's miserable in their present circumstances. So the biggest thing that I look at with the military, it's like the word veteran. The word veteran is not a present tense word. It's a past tense. The word veteran is designated something that you did, not something that you're doing. And so I really try and be aware of that and focus on, what do I want to be today, not what was I 10 years ago.
The problem with that, or if you want to call it a problem, is that if you said you felt a calling to this job, and if you're kind of perfect for it, you're not really going to be maybe not perfect for anything else in life. So I could see why it could be hard for people. For me, I found a new calling, so to speak, and which is storytelling and doing what I've done in Hollywood. And so for me now, that's really my new calling. And so I look fondly on my old job, but it's definitely I have a new purpose. What exactly are you doing in terms of Hollywood right now? Are you doing some producing or trying to put some stuff?
I wrote something and I'm trying to get a story made. So it's a process, but I'll keep working on it. Yeah.
Don't give up.
No, I definitely won't. Yeah,
it's terrible. You were talking before about, and I can't remember exactly what we were talking about people who were in the military but never saw combat. And so I'm just going to bring this full circle. So a friend of mine is very good friends with a woman, a very well-known screenwriter in Hollywood, has many credits, has made a lot of money, but she's never had a single movie ever produced. She's been doing this for like 20, 30 years,
Yeah.
And that's, but I mean, it's a very good living for her.
Yeah.
But she's never had a screenplay produced. So
yeah, it's very common, sadly. It's a it's a difficult process.
Hold on. We all dropped out there. Now I'm on the wrong side, but that's all right. Here's your book right there.
Awesome.
Forging Chaos. We'll put a link up on our blog to that too.
Awesome.
and I'm gonna oh hell. Okay. And there I did it. Look at that. I'm
Awesome.
slick. Tyler, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. And yeah,
Hey, when you get something, if you have anything to announce, please let your publicist know.
yeah, I will.
We'll love to have you back. Okay?
Awesome. My pleasure. Thank you so much for everything.
My pleasure too. Thanks. Tyler Gray from the television series SEAL Team and from his book Forged in Chaos. Interesting fellow. A lot of interesting things to say there too. Especially we were talking about when I asked him why he thought so many people are having such a hard time. He said, well, we know the reason people are trying to destroy us. And I should have pressed him. I actually decided I didn't want to. Like he said, we know who those people are. And well, I think I know, but I'm not sure. At any rate. So this is the part of the show we call the Gym Cast. This is not going to be that long tonight because I'm a little under the weather. But basically, we talked a little bit on Thursday with Tim Conaway, our friend, and our regular caller Think called in, and we were talking about Charlie Kirk getting killed. It's amazingly, this is still kind of in the zeitgeist. Usually, after about 5 or 6 days, it's going to kind of fade away, but this one doesn't seem to be that way. And a lot of people have said this might be different. The irony is that his organization, Kirk's organization, is called Turning Point, and people are saying, well, this might be a turning point in the culture, and it might be. A few things I do want to discuss, though. I haven't heard also that I haven't heard other people discuss because I don't want to just pile on with the same. First of all, people who think gun control would have eliminated this whole scenario are nuts. That's just crazy shit. It's very simple. These things are happening because of crazy individuals. And I don't know if you know the statistics. There's 340 million people in the United States, men, women, and children. There's supposedly about 400 million guns. In other words, there's more than one firearm for every single person in the country. Okay? The Second Amendment aside, which is this is actually a different discussion because the Second Amendment was stuck in the Bill of Rights for a very, very good reason. But that's not what I'm getting at here. There's more that you're not going to. If you passed a law that said, okay, we're going to ban handguns in the United States, all right, and that's never going to happen. It shouldn't. But even if you did that, you're never going to round even half of them up. There's too many floating around the system. If you think you can keep a firearm away from a determined assassin by passing a law, you're crazy. That's just all there is to it. The people who are doing this, the vast majority of them are lone individuals, and they're mentally ill, and there's a certain percentage of them in society, and they're gonna shoot. This is a terrible thing. Nobody wants to address this. This problem is never going to go away ever, as long as like I said, you can't do anything. If these people are determined enough, they're going to get their hands on firearms, and it's not that hard because there's a zillion of them everywhere. Now, we can have another discussion of whether there should have been a zillion of them produced. I personally think guns don't shoot people; people shoot people, and and I don't think it matters at all. But you're not going to keep these people. This is never going to stop. That's the thing that the left can't wrap their mind around. Actually, I think most of them can't. A few of them don't want to, because the reality here is they're pushing gun control to control the populace. That's all there is to it. It gets back to just what Tyler Gray was talking about. I mean, there's a group of people, and actually they probably aren't actually in the United States. That's the amazing thing. But there's a group of individuals who wants to basically control society on the planet, and one of the ways they want to do that is to keep individuals from getting guns, because once you don't have a gun or can't get a gun, you can't fight back. It's as simple as that. Look at what's going on in Britain right now. They don't have any guns in their system. The guns are illegal over there. How do people kill each other? Knives. So are we going to make dinner flatware illegal? Yeah, it's so there's that alone. Okay, that alone. That's just a non-starter. It's never going to happen. You're never going to keep these people from doing this. Now, this particular gentleman who's been charged, and the evidence against him is overwhelming. It'll be interesting to see. Kash Patel today in Congress, he's pushing the idea. He implied very strongly that he does not think this guy's acting alone. I mean, my cursory glance is that he is, but maybe they know something that I don't know. And I had to actually do some digging about this afternoon. Thomas Crooks, the guy who fired at Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, and also killed a man there in the crowd and wounded several other people, a couple of them seriously. It's astonishing how little we know about him. And I even did a search on. I asked Copilot today. The AI asked him about it, and even Copilot said that quote unquote, he's a very enigmatic figure. We don't know a lot. No, we don't. And how does that happen? We don't know if this guy was set up. We don't know if he did this on his own. We have no idea. This Crooks fella. So it's going to be interesting to see what they find out about this Tyler Robinson guy. I mean, the evidence seems pretty overwhelming that he did it, but that doesn't mean he didn't have any help. Or you go back to the JFK assassination. I mean, I'm trying to think here. The 1960s, we had 3 killings that really, really changed the outlook of the populace. That was, of course, JFK, Martin Luther King, and RFK, and that would be RFK Jr.'s father. And of course, JFK was his uncle. All those things happened in the course of about 5 years, is it? Do I got that right? Or maybe 6. But this seems to be one of those, I hate to use the word, turning points where people are going to start to reflect. I mean, it's going to be one of those questions, do you remember where you were when this happened? And the amazing thing is, I mean, I'm not going to say I agreed with every single thing that Charlie Kirk said, because I don't agree with usually every single thing anybody says. I'm a Trump supporter. I don't agree with everything Trump does and says, you know. But at least the amazing thing is he didn't even have. He had a platform, but he wasn't in a position to actually execute anything. I don't mean that as a pun either. He was not a politician. He was not an elected official. He was just a guy who talked to people. That's what he did. And so everyone is saying, well, let's have a conversation. Then you shoot the guy who wants to have the conversation. Well, that's good. It's astonishing. I said all this to get to this point. I've said this on this program previously, but I've been talking about this now for about the last 4 or 5 months. I'm really starting to think the problem we have in this country as far as our quote unquote divide is not political. It's that we're now dealing with an increasingly larger percentage of the public that's just mentally ill. And I don't know why that is. I mean, I have some ideas, and I don't know if I'm going to talk about them tonight because for time. But yeah, a survey was done about a month ago, and it was a major. All the polls I cite and surveys I cite on this program are all done by major companies. I think it was Rasmussen, where a third of the American public, adults, identified themselves as, I don't know what the exact term was, but basically mentally ill. They said they're mentally dysfunctional, or however they wanted to put it. 1/3 of the public. I Years ago, a million years ago, I hosted a morning radio show, and I remember this distinctly, even though I don't remember who this guy was. I don't even remember why he was on, and it was like a lot of morning shows. It was pretty kind of gregarious and a lot of humor. So this was unusual that we were having a serious conversation. I don't even know what it was supposed to be. Guy's a psychologist, and he said something. I said at some point, I said, "Well, doctor, I mean, you could make an argument that a whole quarter of the American public is technically, clinically, mentally ill, couldn't you?" And he stopped and said, um, yeah, I think that'd be about right. And that scared the crap out of me. It's like I'm just a guy talking on the radio, and here this doctor says, "Yeah, a third of the public actually is mentally ill, or that a quarter. It was a quarter then. It's a third now. That's self-diagnosed too. Those are people. That's what people told the pollsters. It wasn't even doctors. So yeah, w- we have uh, hold on. There is I'm going to give you an example here that Dana Lash posted in her newsletter this afternoon about, and she was talking about this too, about the way we're raising children in this country. And this is a comedian, Sebastian Maniscalco, who's if you ever, he has like 10 specials on Netflix, and watch all of them. The guy's very, very funny. He's very funny, and it's amazing. He's got quite a following, even though I don't know if I've ever seen him on network television. It's only from these Netflix specials that he's got quite a following. But he said he went to his kids' basketball game, and his kids' team, was being obliterated. It was 14-2. But then they started taking points away from the other team. The score then suddenly was 10-2. And when Maniscalco asked what was happening, one of the moms said the other team didn't want their team to feel bad for being beaten. That's the lamest goddamn thing ever. If you lose, you lose. I mean, we are trying to, it's like we have a portion of the public that's trying to re-engineer society so that nobody feels bad ever. And that's just not only is that never going to happen, it's wrong. It's actually wrong. You, you should get, when you get negative feedback, you should process that because there's a reason you're getting it. And yeah, maybe you're getting screwed. Maybe you are, but you should learn from that too. And so we're raising a whole generation of people who don't learn anything because they never actually legitimately experienced anything. So I'm not the only person who mentioned this, that this Tyler Robinson guy that allegedly shot Kirk, his lover is supposedly a man who's transitioned into a woman. And a lot of these uh, shootings, mass shootings, they have either been done by transgender individuals, or there been some sort of transgender component to them. I've said this on this program many times. Transgenderism is real, and this is actually the reason it's way more complex than anybody will tell you. I mean, you have people on the right who will tell you that this is all entirely mental illness, and then there's people on the left saying, no, this is a real thing. Well, it's actually kind of in between. Here's what's going on here, folks, and I know this from personal experience, not my own, but I mean observation. Transgenderism is real, but very, very few people actually exhibit it. The vast majority of people who think they're transgender are mentally ill. That's the problem. You can't really tell who a legit transgender person is and who isn't. I'll give you an example. Case in point, Caitlyn Jenner. Now, you're talking about one of a guy who was held up, and he was a guy. He was a guy, and I guess technically he's still a guy. A guy who was held up as one of the greatest athletes who ever lived, right? And that's basically in his youth. Time passes. He's like 30 years away from the Olympics, maybe even 40. He had 40 years to think about the fact that he still wanted to live as a woman. And he's a guy, he had everything to lose by doing this, and he still did it. So he feels pretty strongly about this. Yes, right? And he's done it quite successfully. He's pulled this off. And one of the reasons is he isn't bugging everybody about his any radical political views. He doesn't have any. He's a Republican. He's been very, very outspoken about the fact that he does not think transgender people in his position who are men transgendering as women should be playing women's sports. He's a guy who would know. He's one of the premier athletes of his generation, one of the premier athletes of the 20th century, and he would know, right? He is a. I will tell you, he's a legit transgender person, if only because he had so much to lose and so much time to think about it, to think about doing it. So he's real. I've known one person in my life. It was Don Zora and I when we were doing the Kong News, when we were doing Kong News Weekend show, and we did that for about 5 years. And he was one of the regular panelists. And I remember we're on the air, we're recording, and we're talking about this, and Don looks at me and says, he said, "Jim, you and I are almost exactly the same age, 1 month apart, right?" And he says, "How many transgender people have you known in your entire life?" And I said, 2. And he said the same thing, 2. And the thing is, one of the people I knew was a woman who had gender reassignment surgery and became a man. And if you knew this woman, everyone who knew her knew she did the right thing. I mean, it sounds like I'm making a joke out of this. I'm not. This person, she was basically a man with breasts, basically. And she's much happier for it. Now, Caitlyn Jenner has explained the fact that not everybody actually wants to fully transition to the other sex. And it took me a while to wrap my mind around that. That's still kind of a wishy-washy proposition in my head, but I'll accept that. Okay. Miss Jenner still has her penis, and apparently she's gone on record saying she still uses it. So that's a complex issue. But my point is, she's pulled this off successfully. If you're that angry about what people are saying about the world of transgenders, or that you have to kill somebody, you probably aren't a real transgender person. That's you shouldn't have that degree of anger over what somebody just says. And yeah, this is a crazy thing. And it's a crazy thing also because of the fact that I brought this up before. Even if you take into account that, by my reckoning, out of you find 10 transgender individuals, 9 of them are probably not legitimate, are probably just people who are just mentally ill. But even if you took all 10 of them, the percentage of these people in our culture is so unbelievably small, it's mind-boggling. So my point is, I guess I did have a point. I do have a point. We are dealing with suddenly in this country, in the last 10 to 20 years, an enormous number of people who are mentally dysfunctional, who have severe emotional issues, and they're taking it out on the rest of us. And I don't know, as a culture, what we do about this. One thing, Trump has brought this up, and he has a really good point here. We probably need to start building facilities to house and care for these people. Now, in the 50s and 60s, we had these things. They were, by all accounts, they were very cruel, and the care was very bad. But then you wonder too, is cruel care worse than no care? I don't know. That's not a retort. I truly don't know. I don't know what the answer to that question is. I don't. But we have to start addressing this issue. We have an enormous number of people. And here's another thing I've told you before too, and other people are talking about this. Social media doesn't help. I'm not going to get into the details. I was actually one of the developers of social media. And I've said this before, kind of in passing on the show, but I'll say it again. I regret my involvement. I've decided that in the long run, and there are some very positive uses of social media. Like, for example, my wife keeps track of her family on Facebook. They got a group, and they're all in there. It's private, and they meet in there regularly and discuss stuff. She's got a very, very large family. She has like 100 first cousins. So I know there's positive uses for this, but I think on the whole, on balance, it's done more harm than good. I really do. And it's like it's screwing with people's heads because people have a tendency to think that what they're doing online is real, and it isn't. And I've made the analogy before, and not the only one who has, about the fact that in some ways it's like how people used to look at newspapers in the 1960s, 50, 60 years ago. Basically, in the 1960s, if you read something in the New York Times, you assumed it was true just because of all the work it took to get it in the newspaper. And everyone, they were printing newspapers. I got a story about that. I'll mention this in passing here before we go. Um, it was very difficult to print newspapers every day. You get a new newspaper, and there's no online and none of that crap. None of the stuff we deal with. You literally had to go down. You either had it delivered, or you went down to the local newspaper box or the newspaper stand and bought a newspaper, right? So if you read it in the Times, people assume, well, it must be true. I mean, it takes so much work to get in the Times, either now, for some reason, people have that same attitude has kind of transferred to social media, where people kind of assume that if they see it on Twitter, if they see it on Facebook, it has to be true. And that's the craziest thing ever because you can go on and on about the fact there's controls and content filters, all that sort of stuff. Basically, on all these platforms, anybody can post anything. So that's nuts. How can you believe something in a medium where anybody can post anything? Now, I'm not on social media. The show is everywhere. The show is everywhere. I'm not on personally not on social media. I got off years ago. And it's not that I'm better than you or anybody else. My thing is I started working on the internet really, really early in the early 1990s. And I got addicted to it before everybody else, and I broke my addiction before everybody else. So I mean, I went through the same cycle, except I finished the cycle before most people. That's the only difference between me and maybe you. I would say if you're asking me, you should get off social media. Now I'm not including YouTube or Rumble. They aren't really social media platforms; they're broadcasting platforms. I'm talking about Facebook, Twitter, you know, TikTok. Although I have to say, TikTok just fascinates the hell out of me. It's a garbage heap, but my God, it's the most glorious garbage heap on the planet. It's unbelievable. But and we're going to start broadcasting there too. And I don't know, the thing with TikTok is I don't know. It's kind of both a broadcasting platform and a social media platform, both. But the fact is, you shouldn't believe anything you see on these platforms, I would say, even from legitimate news sources. And that brings us to the mainstream media. And like my friend David Strom over at Hot Air likes to say, and he might have uh, coined this term or this phrase because now you see it everywhere. That is, you can't hate the mainstream media enough. I mean, and he's right. You can't. I mean, there's stuff been going on. Oh, let me show you. I'm gonna use some examples here. Well, I just saw this today. I'm in the supermarket this afternoon, and I'm picking up the New York Times. And I don't buy the Times anymore. I used to be. I mean, a million years ago, I was a subscriber. I haven't. I do not read the New York Times anymore. Uh, but I'm reading the headlines, and they're talking about um, the fact that the Trump administration wants to start uh, like policing or something the far left news sources, and they had far left in quotes. That's because in their mind, there's no such thing as far left. They'll talk about far right conservatives all the time. And it's the same in Wikipedia. You go on Wikipedia and you go to about certain news companies or whatever, like Fox News or News Corp, or I think even the New York Post, and they will describe them as far right news sources. But you'll never see that about like about Huffington Post or New York Times or any of that. They're never described as far left or even left for that matter, because in the minds of the people who do this, there's either far right or normal. That's the way they look at it. Anything that isn't far right is normal, which is just absurd because, I mean, there's a reason these people lost this last election. But yeah, the stuff they've done with this, Charlie Kirk shooter, I mean, the MSNBC's been trying to convince people that actually he was a Republican, that this is actually Republican on Republican crime, all sorts of crazy stuff. It's just nuts. And then there's the surveys that came out. I have to do this. I have to tell you about this. Um, this survey was done like 3 or 4 days after Kirk was shot. And I can't remember. I'm not going to click on the link because I'm not going to bore you of what company did this. But like I said, all the polls I referenced on the show are done by major polling companies. And that is 40% of all the Democrats polled said it's either extremely or somewhat acceptable to have people you disagree with killed. 40%. 40%. It was 4% for conservatives, 40% of liberals. And and then I don't have to tell you about all the crazy shit that people have been posting about Kirk since he got shot. Now, yeah, I understand if you don't like his point of view. I understand that completely. But no, nobody deserves to die for what they said. Nobody. Now if you're looking at a guy like Hitler, okay, Hitler was beyond talking. He actually did do stuff, but Kirk didn't do anything other than run his organization. That's it, and talk a lot, and he was really good at it. And even if you don't, like I said, even if you disagree with him, I mean, the fact that we have gotten to the point where this is normalized is absolutely crazy. And then you look at all these people, and the people that got fired because of them saying unconscionable things online. Once again, and people don't seem to realize that when they post on Twitter, when they post on Facebook, the world can see it, which is just mind-boggling to me. In their mind, they're just posting to their 5 friends. This is. I I don't understand the stupidity of people. Don't understand where they're coming from. But we have completely normalized now basically political violence. And what is the point of that? That's the other thing. This guy who shot Kirk, what did he accomplish? Well, actually, this might have completely backfired. Because of the backlash to the shooting, Kirk's message is going to be amplified even more than it would have been otherwise. So, I mean, he really, not only did he not accomplish anything, he's probably accomplishing the opposite of what he wanted to, you know? And doesn't this occur to people? No, it doesn't. So, I've had discussions on the show before with people when we talk about the fact that, does true evil exist, or are people just colossally stupid? And like the thing with the transgender issue, I think it's a little bit of both. I think that true evil does exist, but the majority of stuff that passes as evil is just stupid crap. Just people who are just colossally stupid. And it's up to the observer to figure out which is which. So it's in the eye of the beholder. I don't know. This is, and I brought this up on the show with guests. Hypothetical situation. Assuming Hitler and the Nazis had not done the Holocaust, assuming they had nothing to do with rounding up Jews and killing them, right? If you hypothetically left that out of the war, was the war itself evil? I don't know. It's like, and I was just talking. Was it Jonathan Lockwood who was on, a military guy, about the fact that if Hitler had not bothered with trying to get into Britain and Russia, and just kept it, he had all of Europe. There you got yourself a whole continent. Maybe it's time to stop. And So you basically united a disparate people. It would have been the European Union before the European Union. Now was that good? No, because he took all these countries by force, but still that, from a military standpoint, that should have been enough. But nope, no. We're gonna go to Russia, a country that is like geographically 20 times bigger than Germany. It's like your little chihuahua just trying to yap at the heels of a Saint Bernard is basically what it is. No, we're going to do that because we can. But because look at all the stuff we've done. Oh yeah, right, yeah, right. No, that might be stupidity. I don't know if that's evil, but any rate, I'm beyond words at this point. I don't understand what. Or no, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say I don't understand what's going on, but I think I do. I don't understand what we do about it. That's what I don't understand. It's if there's so many people in the country that are this mentally deranged, how do you even try to stop it? I don't know. Yeah. So getting back to what my original point here, sub point was that all these people posting this stuff on social media and then they get fired and they wonder why. And they say, well, you don't understand. I have the right to say this stuff. Yeah, you actually do have the right to say it. That doesn't mean you have the right to be employed where you're employed. And you can't ascertain the difference. There's this woman who got fired from the Washington Post, and I can't remember her name, and I think I maybe have a link here, but I don't know if her name's in it. About the fact she said the same thing. She was fired as a columnist from the Washington Post for saying ugly things about Charlie Kirk's death. And she said, "Well, she's a black woman, and she said you fired me because I'm black." And not only that, she said you gave me no warning, nothing. And the Post, Washington Post, to their credit, they leaked the letter they sent to her terminating her employment. And according to that letter, they gave her numerous warnings about her own racism. It's like the letter is scathing, just scathing about why they let her go. And so she basically just completely lied through her teeth, right? But of course, she can do that because she has First Amendment rights. Yeah. And so you don't understand the difference between, see, now you're unemployed. You can say whatever you want, you know? Yeah, just go back on Twitter and start mouthing off like an idiot. And people can't tell the difference. They can't. All right, I've talked long enough here, and I don't know if anything I've said actually made any sense. I don't. But like I said, I don't know what you do about if our country is filled with crazy people. I don't know what you do about that. I don't. But I'm pretty convinced that it actually is. Once again, my original point, and that is, I don't think this is a political problem. I think it's a mental illness problem. But how you solve it, I don't know. You tell me. I want to thank you folks for watching. I want to thank Tyler Gray for joining us tonight. Great thing. By the way, we had a little glitch there. And then this is just so stupid. It's like, and you're talking about stupidity. So, I left the room, and apparently while I was gone for just a couple minutes, the connection crashed. So I don't know. We might edit this and try to repost it with that. I don't know how much time was missing, but my apologies for that. But I know we played the whole interview back, except there was a space in it. So anyway, thanks to him. I'm taking tomorrow off because I'm still trying to get my shit together. I don't know what's going on. I don't. By the way, it was 90 degrees. It's September 16th, and it's 90 degrees today here in Minneapolis. And oppressively, the humidity was terrible. It was like tropical. That's actually what they called it. And I don't know. I'm wondering if that's one of the reasons I'm not feeling good. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, we have had the last 4 or 5 days, we've had some unusually hot weather for September. So, but at any rate, I'm not. I'm under the weather. I'm trying to keep my shit together here. And so anyway, yeah, I'm taking tomorrow off. Thursday, we got John Adams. He's the proprietor of the website Adventures in Remote Viewing. And I'm sure we'll have a great conversation with him because we'll figure out how all this stuff works, or if they even know how it works, or but like I said, it's pretty much proven at this point that the remote viewing thing is real. And I know you might have a hard time accepting how this works, and maybe I do too, but too many people have done too many things. Hell, our old friend Bruce Solheim, who's been on the show now 3 or 4 times, on his second to last appearance, well, this is one where we lost all 7 copies of his interview. He said he couldn't go into too much detail, but he said that he was asked by the State Department to remote view where the hostages are being held in Gaza, and he said he found them, and they went to those locations and did recover and did uh, capture people. He said it worked. It worked, you know. So that's the thing. It's we as humans. I'll just wrap this whole thing up for me talking here half an hour. We are so stupid, and we do not know it. You think we're smart? No, no. There's a bunch of gray aliens on Zeta Reticuli, 37 light years away, who just got us beat in spades, and a lot of us don't want to come to terms with that. About the fact that there's a whole bunch of extraterrestrials that are way smarter than we are. Now that might be our future, but it's not our present. So we'll learn some stuff about remote viewing from John Adams on Thursday. I know that next Monday Don Zorro is coming back for his monthly appearance, but we have the rest of the week booked up. I know that, and hopefully I will have my shit together by then. Thanks again once again for watching, everybody. Good night, Uncle Donnie, wherever you are, and good night to you wherever you may be. You have a nice evening. I'm taking tomorrow night off, Wednesday night off. We'll see you on Thursday night. Take care, everybody.